All right, Alexander. Here is an interesting story with regards to the energy, natural gas, oil crisis in Europe, and we did many videos talking about the surge in prices in Europe because of the bungling of the deals or the lack of deals that they made with Russia, and they really screwed that one up, the European Union. But in the past few days, the prices have come down because we have tankers coming in to save the day. Is that the plan? The plan is now to get the natural gas, get the oil, get the energy requirements shipped in, and that is going to bring the price down, and it is going to weed Europe away from dependence on Russia. That's the plan. Correct?
If you read some over-enthusiastic commentaries, that you might think is the plan. I mean, we're talking about 20 tankers or something like that, and there's apparently another 17 heading, or talked about heading towards Europe. Most of them, by the way, to Britain at the moment, interestingly enough. We'll come to Britain shortly. The reality is that if you look at the volumes, this is nowhere near enough to make any significant difference. I mean, the amount of liquefied natural gas you can ship at this time is limited, and it's limited largely because of capacity constraints. I mean, you'd have to create a far bigger infrastructure in Europe to replace pipeline gas with liquefied natural gas than exists at the moment. So this is, to some extent, and I suspect to a great extent, a public relations exercise. Now, gas prices, there have been other factors in causing gas prices to fall. One of them is very thin trading in gas futures over the Christmas period. And I mean, Bloomberg's written a piece about this, and I am sure that this is right. But I think the other thing that we've also been seeing, and this isn't perhaps a more ominous thing, is that apparently an awful lot of gas has been pumped out of the reserves over the last few days to make sure that there weren't any stoppages or outages over the Christmas holiday. But the result is, of course, that the gas reserves, the underground gas storage reserves across Europe, are now at even lower levels. We've also had a spell of relatively mild weather in Northern Europe. The problem is, all of this is now ebbing. And January, the meteorologists say, we're going to have much colder weather. Perhaps they're right, perhaps they're wrong, but if they're right, much colder weather. And at that point, if that is indeed the case, all of these problems that we saw before are going to come back with a vengeance. Now, I would add that there's a further twist, that it looks like one has to be so careful what we say, but there's been all these problems with the KUF people have been talking about. It now turns out they might not be as severe as some people have been saying. It looks as if oil prices, which dipped, are probably going to start rising again in the new year. That at least is what the oil industry experts are saying. If that is right, then we're going to be even more short in energy than would be the case with all of these other factors. So, it's a temporary relief. And as I said, these tankers heading to Europe are not really going to make a significant difference. And
that's before we get to the UK.
Yeah. And that's not just me who's saying it. I mean, I'm taking that from oil industry experts from places like oilprice.com and those sort of places.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get to the UK, which you mentioned earlier, they've been talking about, Europe has been talking about this solution, the tanker solution, specifically from the US for a while now. And specifically, this solution has been floated by the Baltic states, by some countries in Eastern Europe, that the way to move away from dependency on Russia is to bring in the tankers. Is this a real long-term solution? That's my first question to you. And then on a side note, isn't it interesting how the leaders in Europe and the US seem to have the same type of problem-solving ability. And what do I mean by that? To me, and this is just my opinion, it seems like the way Biden went about kind of, and I use the word solving very, very loosely here, solving the oil crisis in the U.S. He tapped into the reserves, and it dipped the price by a couple of cents for like a couple of days, and that seemed to be his way of solving the solution there. Very much optics. It seems like the Europeans kind of are doing the same thing with this stunt. Bring in the tankers. It'll depress prices for a while, and that'll be our media PR optics moment. I don't know. That's just an observation. So, the real question is this really a long-term viable solution? And I don't know if you want to comment on the way both leaderships seem to be going about this.
No, it's not a sustainable long-term solution for one very simple reason. There isn't enough gas in the United States to do this. I mean, that's, I think, a point that people perhaps don't understand. The United States produces an awful lot of gas at the moment, but it doesn't have the enormous potential that Russia does. It can't keep providing gas at planetary levels indefinitely. And, you come to what the administration's been doing. Of course, their policy anyway has been to move us away from fossil fuels and to limit development of the fossil fuel industry in North America. So there are even more constraints coming, on stream. And already one gets a sense that these tankers are heading towards Europe, partly because at the moment natural gas prices in the US are relatively low. But I'm hearing reports that natural gas prices are going to start rising again in the United States. And I can't help but think that if that starts to happen and it starts to affect even more the Democrats' prospects in the midterms, then you're going to see this flow of gas from the US to Europe start, falling to a trickle. So it's not a sustainable solution. I mean, in theory, you could probably, achieve a kind of increase in a long-term increase in natural gas supplies from North America to Europe for about, say, a 10-year period. But you'd also have to build a massive infrastructure in Europe to do it. And that doesn't exist. So, I mean, this can only act, if you like, as a short-term relief to a long-term problem. And even if you create all that infrastructure, even if, you prepared to sort of have all this gas supplied to Europe for, say, a 10-year period, even if you undo all the policies that the administration is following, which seek to limit the fossil fuel industry in the US, even if you do all of that, even during that period when you're supplying the liquefied natural gas, it will still be more expensive than the alternative, which is pipeline gas from Russia, which you are, of course, rejecting. And, of course, the result is that with that pipeline gas now increasingly flowing east to China, potentially to India, some talk about it going to Korea as well. Well, of course, that makes Europe less competitive.
Yeah, I believe they've already pretty much signed up and sealed everything with regards to Power of Siberia too.
Absolutely, Power of Siberia
through Mongolia, and I mean
absolutely.
That's a done deal now as well. So
absolutely,
China is definitely the future.
Yeah, I mean,
or Asia at least is the future for Russian gas.
It's so bizarre because, of course, what the Chinese have done is, they've seen the crazy policies. I'm sorry to use that word, but these very odd policies that the Europeans have been following. And they've been saying to themselves, well, here's our nice chance. We're going to get all the Russian gas, all the Russian pipeline gas. It's going to be start flowing to us. So, we're going to get cheaper gas. The Europeans will have more expensive gas. And we're going to improve our competitiveness as opposed to the Europeans. So they got Power of Siberia 1, which was from fresh gas fields in the Arctic, and that's already now operating and flowing to China. But Power of Siberia 2, which is much bigger, by the way, than Power of Siberia 1, and which is now, it's a done thing. I mean, it's definitely going to happen. It's they're going to start work on it this coming year. Power of Siberia 2 is going to start diverting gas that was previously flowing to Europe from the West Siberian Russian gas fields to China. So Power of Siberia 2 is a long-term threat to Europe's energy security. But of course, you barely hear anybody discuss this in Europe.
Yeah, I agree. Well, okay, talking about prices and price increase for the Europeans, especially if they follow this this tanker model, it's going to be a significant increase in prices for all EU citizens. That's a given. The UK is looking at an increase in energy prices. This is going to be another problem for Boris Johnson. And this is going to be a significant problem, I believe, if energy prices do go up, because it's going to hit the people in their bank accounts in a big way. What's going on with the UK?
Absolutely. I mean,
the possible energy increase.
I mean, this is a fascinating thing. There's been an extraordinary article about this in the Daily Telegraph, but now we're hearing lots of people from the energy industry coming along. And what they're saying is that they just can't cope with the situation anymore, because in Britain, energy prices that are provided to consumers, both household consumers and to some extent industry consumers, are capped. So the energy companies are not allowed to raise their prices to their customers, their energy users, up to the wholesale price level. So the result is that more and more of them are going bust because they have to buy gas, which is now much more expensive than the gas they can sell. So what they're doing is they're telling the government, look, you must do one of either two things. Either you must bail us out. Either, in effect, you must pay for the gas we are buying, which would be an extraordinary step. I mean, to be absolutely clear, that would be, in effect, almost, dare I say it, a kind of covert nationalisation of the energy industry in Britain, which has all kinds of problems and long-term issues. And remember, Britain runs budget deficits. It's already overspending. It will be another major problem. And anyway, at a time when Britain is raising taxes, it would be a very controversial thing to do. So either you do that, or we go bust, or you let us increase the prices that we charge our customers. And there's been talk now of a threefold increase in prices. Now, the Daily Telegraph has said we either have an economic crisis in which the energy industry collapses, or we have a political crisis when customers start facing these kind of gas bills. So we are caught between the two. And that's the situation in Britain today. Now, probably something will, be massaged round over the winter. I suspect the government will provide some support, but we'll see what happens.
Either way, it's going to be a political crisis for Boris.
Absolutely,
Whether it's the energy industry that collapses or the prices go up. I mean, it all just comes right back to his government.
Absolutely. Yet again, I can't help but emphasise this. I'm sorry you harp on this. It's these misguided policies that these governments, and the government in Britain is as bad as any, in fact, worse than some, have been following. I mean, we all know they've been running this feud against Russia for all these years, so they're not getting access to Russian pipeline gas, which they could easily have done. It would have been perfectly possible to do, but no, they wouldn't do it. And they built lots and lots and lots of windmills. If you go to the Thames estuary, if you fly over it, as I've done, you see that, the sea is full of these floating windmills. And of course, they're all lying still. And of course, they said to themselves, well, we're an island, we're windy, we can produce lots of energy like that. And of course, they can't. It's nowhere near enough. And in the one decision of Tony Blair's that I thought was a proper one, he wanted to press ahead with a major nuclear power building program, building nuclear power stations. David Cameron and the Conservatives, because they wanted to win over Green voters, cancelled that, just as Angela Merkel did. So, we don't have nuclear power. We've closed down our coal industry. Our windmills aren't as good as they might be. and we're running short of gas. Now that's where we are. And I mean, that's typical of all of Europe, but it's hitting Britain in a particularly savage way. And we'll see what happens. I mean, what they do. I mean, Johnson has put Kwarteng on the job. Some people might find that reassuring. Others will say, my goodness. I mean, to be clear, Kwarteng has never managed anything. He's not an industry manager. He's a clever man, but he's not an industry manager. And of course, he's not in any way an energy theorist or anything of that kind. So what he knows or understands about this problem, I really don't know. And, you can be a manager of genius, but if you're faced with intractable problems, what do you do?
Intractable problems, but a simple solution. I mean, this is all self-inflicted. All of it. The simple solutions, like you said, just get the gas from the source. Just go to Russia and get it. Get it cheap, get it to you. End of story.
Well, I mean,
problem solved.
The utterly baffling thing is that they've got themselves into this mess over Nord Stream 2. I mean, you have this great pipeline that's full of gas. It's actually now full of gas, ready to be piped. And because of all these political issues about it, they can't actually turn the tap on, it seems, until June. Apparently, the word is from Russia that the Germans have quietly told the Russians that the certification process is now basically accepted, that they have to turn it on, and that it will be all rubber stamped. But it can't be done before June, because if they do it too soon, well, that will prove what a political thing this whole thing was all along. I mean, it's just silly, but that's where we are. So we're going to turn on the Nord Stream 2 in June, when, of course, the winter is over. And, usually temperatures are higher in June, so we don't need that much gas then. I mean, it's just, if you wanted to write a book about how not to conduct energy policy, I mean, all you would need to do is to look at Europe, and I have to say it also, the United States under this administration.
Yeah. In the meantime, just let the people pay more and let them freeze to death.
Oh, well, indeed. Yeah.
No problem. As long as we get to fulfill our ideology.
Absolutely. And blame Mr. Putin when it all goes wrong, which is what they're going to do. I mean, this is, we're threatening him with massive sanctions. And at the same time, we insist that he provide us with more gas. Even that seems to me, if I have to say, ludicrously inconsistent when you think about it. I mean, why do you think that threatening Russia with disconnection from SWIFT is going to incentivize the Russians to provide Europe with more gas? It seems very old thinking to my mind. But as you said, if you are totally ideological, that's the kind of mental trap you fall into.
Exactly. It's the ideology. It trumps everything. All right. The Duran.locals.com, everybody, and Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, Super U is where you'll find the videos. And go to Duran Shop. Good day. There is the mug. Use that code. Just write those words. Good day. And you can get 10% off all merchandise, including that magic mug. Take care.